Welcome back to another episode of Life's Ambition Podcast. Today we are joined by someone who is extremely well versed. He's going to share his input on business consulting and writing his own book. Without further ado, Andrew Verkamp.
So Andrew, how are we doing today, man?
Doing great. Beautiful day in southern Indiana. How about you, Drew?
You know, I'm from Chicago, and I thought being in North Carolina, things would get a little bit warmer. It's 30 degrees right now, but I swear it feels like it's 3 degrees outside. I think my blood has totally thinned since being down south. So hopefully, being in southern Indiana, I'm sure. Did you guys get a lot of snow this past weekend?
Say that one more time, Drew.
Did you get a lot of snow this past weekend?
This past weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, good weekend. Actually, so southern Indiana, 6 hours, probably about right in the middle where you're at in Chicago, maybe 9 hours or so to North Carolina. We were in the 20s where we hit 30 today. And when you said weekend, I've been hiking. I'm in a hiking mode right now.
I got you. Yeah, in Chicago, there was a blizzard that went through. So I was curious to see if it hit you guys.
Yeah, yesterday I did 11 and a half miles. I live right on the edge of the Hoosier National Forest. So it snowed, so virgin snow. Nobody's walking on it. And I'm out in the middle of the trees are, flocked. It's like Christmas. Anyways, good weekend.
Nice. Yeah, and I'd love to get right into it and start with, I know you created a book, and I'd love to get to that later on, but I'd love to kind of focus on your career and have you kind of explain to it for the listeners that are just unfamiliar, because I know you would travel around to different companies and basically help make them more efficient. And I'd love for people to hear about that.
Okay, Drew, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. You reached out the other week, and the book's the link. The title of your podcast, Life's Ambition, kind of fits to the theme of the book. It's a rock and roll, because actually the era we all just lived through, or maybe you're catching the tail end of it. Rock and roll was the bullseye. It started as kind of the rebel type stuff that you kind of listen to in your closet, and then made it into the mainstream, and it's going off. So, and then you also referenced I touch on it in the book a little bit, but I guess the word is dichotomy, the yin and yang of my life ambition, my career. The book's been in the background, more hobby than front and center. My front and center day job, and still there. I've been semi-retired for, I guess, going on 20 years. About 20 years ago, I decided, okay, I'm never going to retire. And I'm now legally able to retire, but I still want to keep playing the game. So my day job is I've been a business manager my whole life, ran plants, titles up to president, vice president, general manager. They're all just fancy little titles. You're leading people. And I got to meet a lot of people over my careers. The last 10, going on 15 years now, a traveling consultant. So I haven't had a W-2 paycheck in that 20 years about. I just one little gig at a time. Various agencies will hook me up, and then we bad military analogy here, but I'm the Marines. We parachute in, we land on the beach, and we fight our way off the beach and make a hold for the company. And then no violence or whatever, but I rarely get to work in a company that's successful. And I don't mean the ones that I've worked in aren't successful, but they got some type of problem, and that's why they call in the Marines. So
that's what does that mean?
Yin and yang of rock and roll in the book. Kind of my I put on my Superman outfit, and at nighttime I'm a rock and roll nut, and then I take my Superman outfit off, and I'm Clark Kent, the businessman, during the day.
I guess, what does that mean to be a traveling consultant? You said the businesses you go into are not always successful or never really successful. So what is it that you exactly do there?
And then I got to go back and make sure over the last going on 15 years, it's almost 90. I think 89 different companies that I've gone in and worked with. So
wow.
they are successful. I mean, they're still there. But what it means is a traveling consultant. So I guess a typical day job, and I lived that life. My first 15 years of my career, I worked for one company, worked my way up the proverbial corporate ladder, and was the general manager of a division. And then I jumped through a number of other companies. But a traveling consultant, I did some work in Canada, and I'm trying to think, I don't know, 20 some states I've done work in. There's various agencies out there that hook up with companies that have a need. They sell them resources. And then as a contractor, they'll give me a call and say, are you available? And I hook in. There's been a few of them where I'm just in and out in a week. There's been one was multiple plants, but was a year and a half. One was larger company, about 2 years of that going on 15. Had I was in 20 different plants of theirs. But you're not part of their leadership team. You go in and work with your leadership team. And then whatever their bullseye is, we become extra resources. And the magic of a consultant is when you come in, they don't know who you are, and you're kind of this wizard dropping in, the balloon landing in the Wizard of Oz, Emerald City and all that. And then you got to prove yourself. There's certain skills that you evolve over the years. So that's what traveling consultant means. And in my case, I'm an independent. I'm my own business. And when they call me up, I go drop in wherever they want. And when they don't call me up, I would write a book in the background.
See, that's an awesome dichotomy that you got there, both when you're basically your own business, but then you get to pursue your passions outside of what you do. And you mentioned that there's different skills that come quite in handy when you don't know anyone or the company does not know you. Well, what would you recommend for people that do want to go into the traveling consulting world? Like, what kind of skills do they need to develop?
Yeah, I'm going to use, and in fact, I think I refer to it in the book even. I have two growing sons, maybe even a little older than you now, but that they, over their life, they evolved into playing board games. And I guess they do some of it online, but when I grew up as a kid, a board game was the game of life or Monopoly. There was
nice.
Like 5 of them, right? Risk. There's hundreds of them now. And anytime I meet with my sons, we end up playing some new game. So to answer your question, it hit me one day. I told my son, and they literally have hundreds of these games, and they're board games. I said I'd play board games as a real life because every few weeks, or like I said, at the most it was a year, and even during that year and a half, I was in like 4 different plants. So the board game analogy is you got to be able to go in. It's similar, even all these board games, there's similarities, but in general, you got to learn a whole new set of rules. You got to learn the people you're playing with. You got to learn, what scores points, what doesn't score points. But it's a real life board game is what I do as an outsider, as opposed to somebody who might, live their whole career in one business or a few businesses. So the specific skills in my case, there's a genre of business called lean manufacturing. It's based on Toyota back in the 70s into the 80s, and then it became prevalent in the industry in the 90s. Very disciplined approach to business. So that's a formal skill I have. The informal, as I've learned my way through life, it comes down to people skills. And yeah, I'm using math, and I'm using different experiences and data I have to help them find and answer their problems. But the main thing I'm doing is I'm trying to help them drive change in their organization. And that's why consultants come in. In fact, when I ran businesses and consultants would come into my plant, forgive me here, I'd say, get the hell out of my way. I can run my plant. And then I learned it the other way. No, to drive change is hard to do when you're running a plant of hundreds of people and everybody's in their little groove. So I guess if you're on the beginning side of a career, definitely technical skills. And I'm not a wizard technical in anything specific. But in a general, the ability to go in, connect with people, magic word is build trust. And actually, consultants in general in the world have and one reason I told them to get the hell out of my way is consultants have a bad image. They're there to. I think the analogy is they steal your watch and then they tell you what time it is, and then they give your watch back and they give you a bill for a few $1,000s.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. In my case, in trust is one of those. I guess it's like love, or it's you can fake it, or you can do it from the heart, and then you cash in on that trust as you okay, we're not here just to have a hug. We're here to change something.
Oh yeah. So I'm a consultant right now for ACOM, and what I do is I give out different technological services for GIS. So a lot of what I deal with is field crews, so environmental field crews. And these can be at different companies as well. And I was really curious to hear your perspective, especially having your own kind of business, because since I'm part of a large entity, it's very much, okay, ACOM's a good brand. So the people that specialize there or work there are going to do pretty good. And so that's why I was curious to see how you sell yourself to companies about, hey, I have these skills, I can help you out. Because I know how hard it is to kind of like work the beginning of, hey, like I can do this for you. I can make your life easier by making a survey map or any of that stuff. And so I was very curious to hear your approach, which I appreciate. And what would you say, how do you sell yourself? Like obviously you have these skills, but to get the clients to be able to go out to these different places, how did you do that?
So some of that is you build a reputation, and in my case, I'm independent, but I've worked through a few large agencies that will place you. They're kind of like they're your agent. So if you're successful, that means they'll call you up again and again. So part of it is. So when I grew up and had a more traditional job, it was in the woodworking industry.
Very cool.
In fact, you're living down in North Carolina. You're in the bullseye of what was woodworking. So kitchen cabinets, pool tables, hotel furniture,
nice.
various different. So that I had a specific. I could drop knowledge that I had acquired over the years. So the irony of my 89 some businesses that I've worked in, I'm trying to think. I think there was 2 of them that actually I could sell myself because of my background.
That's awesome.
The other 87, and then to your point, how you sell yourself. In fact, some industries, you're not going to get your foot in the door if you can't speak the language.
What do you mean by that?
They're not willing to, invest in time in you. Many industries, and I guess the 87 I did. I'm going to switch to another little story analogy. Way back in my college days, I'm from Indiana, so I went to Indiana University, but the business degree. The professor told the story about the local guy who started a donut shop, and everybody loved his donuts. And they would come by, there'd be a line in the door in the morning to get his fresh donuts. And he thought, well, this is great. I'm making a few bucks, so I'm gonna franchise this. So he was also a marketing major at IU, so he put together this whole plan and started franchising and helped fund. And he had a dozen of them going, and he started failing. He started losing money. And he goes, "What's up? I made the best donuts in the world. I got a good marketing plan." And then his mentor, the wisdom I picked up, is that what you missed is when you set up those franchises, nobody knew how to make the donuts. So when I drop in, I'm pretty explicit. And again, some places, if you don't know how to make the donuts, and I don't know, semiconductors, or I've worked in casket factories. I've worked in the K-Pod, the little coffee cap. I don't know how to make them. I don't know how to make their donuts. Yeah, your people know how to make donuts. And by the way, I can't change your business without people who know how to make donuts. But what I can help you with, or a good consultant can help you with, is from the outside looking in. Okay, you got it on how to make donuts. And if you don't have good donut making people, you got to solve that. You got to recruit, you got to train. But in terms of how they interact with each other, how they play the quote unquote, back to the board game analogy, are you winning or losing? And if you aren't winning, why are you losing? What's the root cause of that? I don't need to know how to make donuts to help you get really good at that. So 87 of the 89 businesses, and I might be off by a few, I didn't know how to do what they did. In fact, I would always joke, the minute I've been there long enough to start understanding how to make donuts, I need to go to another business. Because otherwise I'll get stuck on making donuts instead of, okay, how do I get better at the overall business?
Is that what you mean by speaking the language?
Go ahead, Drew.
Sorry. Is that what you mean by speaking the language then? Is, hey, I know how to do this. You guys know how to do this. Let's work together to find that bridge. So the people that were really good at making donuts, they should really focus on that aspect. Then you can focus on marketing them up, how to learn how they can franchise properly. Is that what you mean by speaking the right language?
Yeah, not so much the marketing side. In fact, I'm a marketing major, but I spent my whole life in the donut factories, what actually goes on. So when I say they can spend their time, so let's say I had 100 customers and I promised them their donuts, and I promised them in a half hour or whatever. And, an hour later, they're still waiting in line. They don't have their donuts. They get mad. They start leaving. So at the end of the day, or during the day, we're adding up our score, and okay, we didn't get the 100 customers. We only did 74 or whatever. So why did I miss the 26? And we start digging deeper into that. That's the skill that we bring in. And then, so one of those answers might mean I don't have enough people trained to make donuts. So then we let's get a plan to train on how to make donuts. We're stuck in donuts here. I'm a rock and roll nut, but I love donuts.
I love donuts. So my favorites, I'm a classic. I'll just go either Tim Hortons or Dunkin'. Did you have like a favorite factory? Like, did you work with any of those brands before? I should ask that first.
Here, ask your specific question. Sorry, the ears are out.
Oh, sorry. Did you work with Dunkin' or Tim Hortons at all? Because those were my favorite donut brands growing up, and even still.
Actually, I use the analogy from, I guess, 40 some years ago in college. No, I've never worked with a donut factory. So
Oh,
can't
gotcha.
help you there. No, I'm using that. A donut could literally be a. I told you I worked about the longest gig I had, year and a half, was with a company that made caskets.
Yeah.
And also the Browns memorials that are on top of your graves. In fact, I worked in the factory that made Elvis's gravestone. Uh,
And my apologies for
no.
that.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, I guess how
Spent a lot of time in factories that made. So when you walk out of the donut shop or McDonald's and you got a cup of coffee in your hand and you got a little plastic tray holding everything else you bought, I worked in those factories. So
gotcha. And I guess how did you transition then? You said you were woodworking and installing cabinets and stuff for a really long time. How did you transition from that to being a travel consultant?
that's interesting. And here I got gray hair. You don't know what a gray hair is yet. So a little wisdom from the old guy. As I grew up in the woodworking industry, and I started whatever whatever caused it, I was going to started working with recruiters to go to different businesses. And they said, once you're in an industry, you're probably quote unquote stuck, or you're going to grow up in that industry. Meaning you're going
Really?
to go from company X to Y to Z. But whatever that bullseye is, donuts, or in this case for me, it was woodworking. Your ability to sell yourself is going to keep you in that industry. So my change, I mentioned the lean manufacturing. A consultant came into our business, was helping us figure out how to improve the business. And I was listening to them, what they're doing. And then actually had an opportunity to go work for another business. They had a problem with one of their leaders, and I took a role for an interim basis to be their interim vice president. And they weren't making wood; they were metal and plastic, totally different. But it started hitting me is that okay, you can get really good at a specific thing, donuts, or in my case, woodworking. Or you can get good at the skills that no matter what industry you're in, you can drop in. So my link was consultants came in, worked in our business. I saw what they were doing, and I said, okay. I also live in a very rural area where my opportunities were going to be very minimum to grow a career. So in this case, as a consultant, okay, I could still live here, but I could travel the country and become this consultant. So I guess it's like riding a bike. If I went back in the woodworking industry, I could tap into those skills. But in general, I don't. And I guess watching somebody come in who didn't know my business and help me change my business, going, okay, I think I can do that.
Which is just crazy. Like that's crazy to think about in my head because now people are changing their majors or careers all the time. I think, and don't quote me on this, but it's on average someone will change their career. It's like 5 times. It's like between 2 and 7. I know that. And so for someone to say that just kind of blows my mind. Like my brother switched from being an engineer to a data analyst. So that's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. I'm the same way. My siblings all worked in primarily one business for their entire careers. My father went one business, and I hesitated because the business burned down, and he had to go to another business. But
I'm sorry to hear that.
one business his whole career. Actually, there's a little bit of snippet in the book on exactly what you're talking about. So the book's got a Woodstock rock and roll background, but it's more about life. heavy on peace and love and freedom and those basic concepts. But the one book quotes exactly what you did. And again, I heard it back in college. I've read it a few times since. Even back in my day, the average career is you're going to have 7 careers in your life.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've had 6 different companies write me a paycheck. One of them I owned, and the one of them has been what I'm doing now. It's my business, but the checks come from agencies or whatever.
Wow.
The 7th career is the book, if it ever sells or will go. But you're right. I'm stuck in actually the generation before me. You went to one job and you stuck in it. And now it's a little more dynamic. And on the other hand, I would still think the majority of people might change jobs, but they're donuts or whatever that is. They stick in that for a large chunk of their life because you get
they still have that
you
genre.
get really good at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I've had a few thoughts on this, and I'd love to hear yours. I think social media plays a big matter, and like the internet, obviously, with knowing how much is out there. I was curious to see what your thoughts were on why people back then would only be in one genre or one category versus maybe trying to find their own path of experiencing something completely brand new.
You probably nailed it with not just social media, but the whole ability to. So again, there is a theme in the book, a couple different chapters, maybe even. So, and by the way, you're looking at a 65-year-old gentleman, and the analogy is, yeah, you're looking at 65, but in my head, I'm still 21.
That's 65 years young.
Yeah. It is actually. So I'm not 21 anymore. I know it, but I'm 22. Okay, I'm still running on a fast pace, but I do have the ability to tell you about So in the theme in the book, back in the late 60s, early 70s, as rock and roll's growing but still on the edge, I'm learning it. And again, we're in a rural area, so the little local library I go to had one book on the Beatles, if you know who the Beatles are.
Yep.
We had encyclopedias where you get a little bit of history. And then back to jobs, I couldn't see. There was the horizon was what you were looking at. You couldn't see beyond it. So now we live in a world where, in fact, my little phone's giving me all kinds of information on podcasts because I've been doing podcasts. I didn't ask for the information, but it's given me all kinds of informations on how the world of Drew works.
I'm telling you, your phone listens. Like I'll be talking about food one day, and then all of a sudden I might be like scrolling or something, and then it's just only food.
It is incredible.
Only recipes. It's crazy.
The good news is I'll stick with music for a second. I can get any music I want. I can get the whole background and everything I want just at a snap of a finger. The bad news is you don't get that sense of wonder and adventure and discovery. You don't have to look for things anymore. So back to the career. Some of it's math. The year I was born, the United States had a little over 100 million people in it. I remember somewhere in the 70s, we passed 200 million, and now we're 300. I don't know, here shortly we're going to hit 400. So some of it's just pure math, and that meant, there's more job opportunities.
And I think that's an interesting approach too, that with more people, then there's more ideas that come in. So then there's more businesses that can flow through the country, and then that gives opportunity for more things to pop up. I actually didn't even think about that approach as well. in terms of just immigration and people's ideas flowing through. So that's really cool. But, I'd love to kind of jump to your book and kind of understand like what made you decide to write one and what is it all about? Because you mentioned a few different themes throughout our talk here that I think are really good for people to understand and how it all blends through music. And I'd love to kind of hear what you had to say.
So I'm going to answer the question. I'm triangulate my life with this thing called rock and roll as a one genre of music. So rock and roll gave birth somewhere in the 50s, and there's arguments that the roots go back further. But Elvis, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, the founding fathers were all 54, 55, into the late 50s. I was born in 1960. The 60s, you started the British invasion, the Beatles, the Stones, and it peaked in 1969, or at least from my vision. That was the year there was this big concert in Bethel, New York called Woodstock. And Woodstock, probably to even people who don't know music, when you say Woodstock, you're going to get some connotation. 500,000 people, hippies in the mud, enjoying themselves. And then music kept going. Rock and roll kept going in the 70s, definitely in the 70s into the 80s. If we jump up to now, there's still rock and roll, but the essence of what it was is moving off on the horizon. It's I don't know. You got Taylor Swift. You got stuff that's still rooted in it, but it's not the pure rock and roll. And nothing against it, just different. So my overlap of living through that same part of history. By the way, the book's called Kiana Woodstock. The Kiana is I'm sitting in the basement looking out in my backyard. It's a little bitty town. The Kiana is the name of a town, and it's Kentucky, Indiana, Kiana. But the town, when everybody's home, has 7 people in it. In fact, I think it might be down to 5 because 2 of them moved away. And I live way out in the northern suburbs of that town of 7. So that's Kiana. Woodstock, so 1969 is when it was, and we're back to a little history technology here. In 1994 was the 25th anniversary of Woodstock. The technology called VHS, the tape, I don't know if you lived in the world, the tapes you would put into play where now you use DVDs or it's online.
Growing up, we had VHS tapes. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Yeah, the technology moved fast. At that point, it was brand new. In fact, we had the laser disc, and then we had beta and everything. But they released the Woodstock movie for the first time ever on VHS in 1994. So and previous to that, I was busy living life. I was having kids. I was working, and yeah, I'd listen to music, but it wasn't obsession. It was background. But we right in the backyard I'm looking at, we put a little TV in the backyard, rent a 100-foot extension cord, and watch the movie. A dozen of us. So every year after that, I kept doing it once a year, and pretty well we just watched that movie. And it grew from 12 to 50 to 100. In about the 12th year, the state of Indiana changed the laws on the time change. It used to be we never changed time, and maybe you're familiar with Chicago. We'd spend half the year in the Eastern time zone, and then the other half of the year, we were technically in the central time zone, so the clock never changed. In that year, they decided they're going to change the clock, and I live right on the dotted line. I literally, if I don't set my phone, I'm either in Eastern or Central time. I got to lock it. Literally on the dotted line.
Wow.
So I always started at sunset, which was used to be 6:30 or 6, but it was still light at 6. So I had to do something between 6 and 7. So we started inviting live bands. So the next 12 years of this 25-year journey, we end up having anywhere from 3 to 5 live bands, still a giant screen. Think drive-in movie in my backyard. I would hang giant sheets of plastic. Actually, I bought billboard material and stretched them between the frame we built, but huge, 32 foot wide, 16 foot tall, huge. But live bands. And in the 24th year of doing that, we had 600 some people in my house in this little backyard. And my wife said no more, because I was looking forward to that 50th anniversary of Woodstock, 25 of my party. And I'm seriously hoping for 500,000 people in my backyard. So along the way of that, technology evolved again. And I started sending little email propaganda and then text later years. But and some of that I'd get rambling on about the passion for music. And behind that theme of music was this theme of same theme of Woodstock, was peace and love, freedom. So somebody said, well, why don't you write a book? So my first attempt was I just took all those emails. I had hundreds of them over the years. And I said, okay, that's a book. And then
that's a good way of doing it.
Actually, as the book ended up evolving to the end, there's a few little bits and pieces in there, but it's mainly I started writing that story, what I just said. The first half of the book is closer to a memoir of my youth, 1969. So 69 stories, and they're little one and standalone stories built into a book.
Wow.
It's the first part of the book's called "Here I Threw Up." Let me. That's That's the vulgar part of it. The play on words is we live about 12 miles from where 20 miles from where Abraham Lincoln grew up. He was born in Kentucky, moved to Indiana, spent his youth in Indiana, about 14 years, and then moved to Illinois, where he spent his bulk of his life, other than when he went to D.C. So if you ever study the life of Lincoln, he will talk about Indiana, and he said, "Here I grew up." So here I grew up. So there's a memorial down there, a national memorial, state park. There's a giant amphitheater down there that becomes part of this story. They built back in '87, where they run summer plays about Lincoln's life. And then it shut down for a few years, and then it came back where they would do summer music. So we started sponsoring a show once a year. And then when my wife said, no more, you're not having that 25th, 500,000 people in my backyard and trash in my house. Which, by the way, just like the Woodstock Festival, nobody got hurt, nobody got trashed.
That's awesome.
Same in the house. It was peace and love. The door was wide open, but nobody got hurt, nobody stole anything, nobody trashed the house. I had to clean up the trash. So the 25th year, we sponsored at this Lincoln Amphitheater. It's a 2,200 seat amphitheater. And again, the theme was the music, but it was peace, love, family, friends, those we meet along the way, those who understand, freedom for all. And ironically, Abraham Lincoln, freedom. I got to drift a little bit on Abraham Lincoln peace, because more people died under his watch than any war we've had. But the root of that is you can't have peace unless you have freedom. You got to have freedom. So heavy theme in the book about peace, love, and freedom. The second half of the book is basically what I'm just rambling through. 69, another 69 stories that talk about the evolution of this And my wife was right. It started as just a giant beer bash college party. Let's get crazy. But what it evolved to was this theme of family, friends, people you meet along the way, in larger peace and love. So we sponsored it at the AMP, and since then we're the stage sponsor. So the main reason I continue to work is we donate to that, and that's in the book. The theme of every 5 years we've settled in, we're going to do this giant Woodstock thing, and the rest of the time we'll sponsor for whatever plays they got, music they got. We sponsor another little folk festival in the area. One of the gentlemen, and I'm staring outside here again, was a Vietnam veteran. His name was Paul Michael Ash.
Thank him for his service.
And unfortunately, Vietnam caught up with him 30, 40 years after the fact, and Agent Orange took him out. But
I'm sorry.
I never paid these bands in the backyard. I said, it's Woodstock, and they all came. Some of them have become pretty famous locally. But I said, what we'll do is we'll pass the hat, and all that money goes to a foundation that's the Paul Michael Ash Foundation, which gives the money to local schools to help grow music and understanding of music. And then we said we would match every dollar. So the main reason I work is to help drive this concept of the book. So if you're interested in the book, it's rooted in, somebody said you ought to write a book, so I just threw it together. But then I spent 9 years, and then the last 2 years, and specifically this last year, I'm semi-retired, so we stopped doing the consulting and pretty well spent most of the months through the summer. And then just a couple months ago, we published the book. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And obviously, congrats on publishing a book. That's not easy by any means to do. And I guess I got a few questions about music and yourself as a whole. Is why rock and roll? Why is that genre so pertinent to you?
I guess that's a personal for me. I love live music in general. It can be country. It could be Taylor Swift. It could be any of that. But live music. In fact, the videos that we would play aren't. It's an age thing, I guess. They're not MTV or videos. They're copies of live music. I would search for live music as much as I could. So let's flash back. Actually, I just yesterday was the 60th anniversary, 1965, that the Beatles released an album called Rubber Soul. That was their 6th album. I was 5 years old at the time. 6. I had just turned 6. No, I had just turned 5. My brother was in Vietnam a couple years later, and he sent home, if you remember the technology, a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Cassettes, none of that existed at that point yet, or for sure CDs, DVDs, or online electronic. So on that cassette, or reel-to-reel, he had recorded some music while he was in Vietnam. And Rubber Soul happened to be on there. So that was the summer of 69. I'm 8 years old. I had no idea what I was listening to. But years later, it hit. So for me, rock and roll was the heroin, the adrenaline burst right in the mainstream. It just hit. From a more global sense, and I think all music has it. I'm zeroing in on rock and roll. The essence of it is, the essence is, here I'm doing heavy metal, doing the hair flash up and down. It's the energy, but it's also, there's a theme in that music. There's a theme of peace. There's a theme of love. There's a theme of freedom. 500,000 people on a hillside in New York State, enjoying themselves and not hurting each other. That's why rock and roll. In fact, I think, and I'm quoting another song here, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. What the world needs now is a little more rock and roll.
Yeah, and I ask that because I find that music has a personal meaning to everyone, and there's specific times that happen in your life that certain music will mean more to you. So my favorite band is Imagine Dragons, and I was going through a good amount through like middle school and high school, and for whatever reason, like their music really connected with me. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan. Every time they come to town, I try to go to the concert.
Cool.
And I find that music is very much universal. It can be any genre, any meaning, anything like that. It'll always connect with someone. That's why I really want to hear your point, because music is like my safe place, my like happy place, I guess you could say.
That's cool.
And it sounds like music for you helps you kind of stay, in a sense, connected to your brother as well, or at least rock and roll does. Would you say?
Yeah. You're reminding me of a kind of back to a work / connection to rock and roll story. So a number of the clients we go in, we try to involve their people, and we'll have week-long events where, okay, here's a problem we're going to solve. We're going to do it as a team. And you'll do a little icebreaker. So one of my icebreakers was, and yeah, I love music and rock and roll, but I really love to listen to people on what their passion is, fishing, hunting, I don't know, knitting,
Anything,
whatever their passion is. I love listening to people get excited about their passion. But one of the little around the table icebreakers, I said, okay, tell me what your favorite music is. Just. And in this case, it was a group of, this was at a large aerospace industry company, and they had an internship program. So they had a lot of in college, right out of college. And this is a few years ago, but I'm still the old gray haired. So we're going around the table, and there was one other gentleman and closer to my age. And when we would relate to the Beatles, the Stones. But what hit me, to your point, I'm glad to hear you had a passion around music. But most of them, I don't know, 8 out of the 12 people would just shake their head and say, I really don't listen to music. And I'm going, what? I usually almost always connect. So then I grabbed the guy my age when it was over. I said, what was that all about? I said, I usually, I might not hit rock and roll, but I'll hit country or something or whatever.
Yeah.
And he pointed to the phone. He said, when we were growing up, to your point, Safe Place or whatever, there was nothing but music. You went and bought your 45 RPM or you listened to it on the radio and then would tape it off the radio. Mm-hmm. But in this day and age of the phones, there's you can play games, you can scroll, you can do 1,000 other things. So maybe that's what the world needs. We need a little more people listening to music, because
exactly,
music is. And I'm going to preach rock and roll to the end. I'm going to write books about rock and roll. And by the way, it's not just rock and roll. It's a journey of life. And I do got to plug it though. 2,000 years ago. In fact, we're about to celebrate Christmas in the essence of that 2,000 years ago. Peace and love was the theme. All religions, peace and love. Unfortunately, most of our world history is the opposite of peace and love. So the rock and roll bullseye starting in the 50s, peaking in 1969 and drifting off as we sit here and maybe never gone. I think we just lived through another time period that 2,000 years from now, they're going to point back. And I don't think there's one Jesus, but there's a general group theme. And we got too many wars. We got too many We got too much hate and the opposite of love. We got divisiveness everywhere. But there's a foothold that took hold in Woodstock and in music in general that I believe that we're living through. You're catching the end of it. I lived most of my life. Peace and love had its best chance during this era, and it didn't win, and it's losing right now. But maybe we need more of that music, whatever you listen to. And music's also about togetherness. So, sorry, I got off on the.
No, all good. All good. I mean, I just think music just has a way of bringing people together. And I really do appreciate you sharing that today, because music does mean a lot to me in terms of just kind of what it has done. And like I said before, in terms of safe place. So I really do appreciate you joining the show here today and explaining your story, your career, and your book. And, 65 years young, 22 years old. Gotta love it. So I really do appreciate it. And thank you again, Andrew.
One quick one here. Your life's ambition, and we talked a little bit before. I don't know that I have yet figured out what I want to be when I grow up.
That's okay.
Yeah. So life's ambition, and if I want wisdom to share with, in fact, don't ever grow up. Keep looking for that, and don't be an immature person your whole life, but don't ever grow up. Don't ever lose that wonder of where am I going? What's next in life?
Isn't that the beauty about life? Is that there's always something to chase and always something new to go after. And so if people can hold on to that message, but also kind of finding out what they want at different points and continuing to be ambitious, then that's all I could ever ask for. And that's what I hope people can take on from this.
All right, Drew. Thank you for your time, bud.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate it, Andrew. Hey, everyone. Want to take a quick second and say thank you to whoever listened to the episode today. I really do appreciate it, and it means a lot. If you did like the episode, make sure to give it a like or 5-star rating depending on what platform you are listening to. And if you really want to support the show, check out our website or Patreon link below. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next episode.